Here are 6 verses most people read straight past. Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Right before the flood account, right after the genealogy that traces humanity from Adam to Noah, when human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. 2 questions the church has been arguing about for 2,000 years. Who are the sons of God? And what exactly are the Nephilim? If you have been with this investigation from the start, you know the pattern we have been following. The Bible never actually gives Satan an origin story. The passages we thought were his biography are addressed to human kings. The being in Isaiah chapter 14 did not want to be worshipped. He wanted to be Elion, the architect of the divine order. And the creature in the garden was never called Satan. In the original Hebrew, that identification was built across 4 centuries of literature. 3 episodes, 1 pattern. An ongoing attempt to subvert the order God put in place, to seize what was not given. Genesis chapter 6 is what happened next, and it escalated. There are 2 major readings of the phrase sons of God in these verses. The first is called the sons of Seth reading. Julius Africanus proposed it in the 3rd century. His argument, sons of God, simply means the righteous line of Seth, the godly descendants of Adam's 3rd son. The daughters of humans are the corrupt line of Cain. This passage is about intermarriage between 2 human bloodlines, not 2 different orders of being. No angels, no supernatural beings, no hybrid offspring, clean contained. It was the dominant reading in the Western Church for 1,000 years. But here is the problem with that reading. The phrase, sons of God, Ben Elohim in Hebrew, appears 4 other times in the Old Testament outside of Genesis chapter 6. Job chapter 1, verse 6, Job chapter 2, verse 1, Job chapter 38, verse 7, Psalm 82, verse 6. In every single one of those passages, Ben Elohim refers to members of the divine council, celestial beings, beings who stand in the presence of God and present themselves before him. Job chapter 1, verse 6, one day the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. Job chapter 38, verse 7, the morning stars sang together and all. The sons of God shouted for joy at the laying of the earth's foundations, before any human existed. These are not human beings. Not once, in any of the other 4 uses of this phrase, does it mean a human being. The sons of Seth reading requires that Genesis chapter 6 is the single exception in the entire Old Testament where Ben Elohim means something human. There is no linguistic evidence for that exception. The plain reading of the Hebrew is that divine beings, members of the celestial council, descended. They chose human women. They had children by them, and the result was the Nephilim, usually translated as giants in English. The most defensible reading of the Hebrew root from the verb nephel, meaning to fall, gives you the fallen ones, or the offspring of fallen beings. And by every ancient account they left behind, they were physically extraordinary. Now here's the detail that holds this entire investigation together. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. The flood comes. It destroys every living thing outside the ark. And then, centuries later, Numbers chapter 13, verse 33, the spies sent into Canaan come back and say, "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Enoch come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Centuries after the flood, in the Promised Land, the Nephilim are still there. If the flood was supposed to end all of this, how? That is the question sitting underneath this whole episode. And to answer it, we need to understand what the Nephilim actually were, because this is exactly where most people's framework breaks down. Here is what most people who grew up in church were taught. Demons are fallen angels. Satan rebelled. A third of the angels followed him, and those fallen angels are the demons who possess and oppress people today. That is the standard assumption. It is everywhere. It feels settled. But look at what the text actually shows about those 2 categories, and the picture gets far more complicated than that. The Nephilim were born of 2 natures. Their fathers were divine beings, members of the celestial assembly. Their mothers were human women, half one world, half the other. And that hybrid nature matters enormously when you think about what happens to them at death. For a fully human being, when the body dies, the spirit has a trajectory in the biblical framework. There is a destination. For a fully celestial being, an angel, there is also a trajectory, a proper destination for what it is. But what happens to something that is half one world and half the other when its body is destroyed? This is the question the ancient Jewish world was working through about Genesis chapter 6, the book of Enoch, and the book of Jubilees, which are not scripture. I want to be clear about that, were the texts they produced to answer it, and the New Testament authors knew these texts. Jude chapter 1 verse 14 quotes the book of Enoch directly by name. Jude expected his readers to know it. If you want a deeper look at why the book of Enoch is not in the canon, what it is, what it actually says, and why the early church made the decisions it made, drop that in the comments. If enough people want it, that is the next standalone video. Their answer to the hybrid problem, the spirits of the Nephilim, had nowhere to go. Not fully human enough to follow human death into its proper destination. Not celestial enough to return to the divine assembly. Earthbound, disembodied. Wandering, desperate for rest. And what the ancient Jewish world called the spirits of the Nephilim, the New Testament calls unclean spirits, demons. Matthew chapter 12, verse 43, Jesus is speaking. He says, "When an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places, seeking rest, and does not find it. Seeking rest, moving through desert places, looking for somewhere to land." That is not a description of a powerful fallen angel executing a cosmic agenda from a position of authority. A powerful fallen angel does not wander through desert places, desperately looking for a body to inhabit. That is the description of something displaced, something that was once embodied and lost the body, something that has no natural destination. And here is where the Legion account, when you understand all of this, lands completely differently than it probably has before. Luke chapter 8. Jesus crosses to the region of the Gadarenes. A man comes running out, living among the tombs, in torment uncontrollable by any chain or fetter. The text says there were many inside him. They identify themselves, and then they make a request not to be released, not to be given freedom to go wherever they want. They beg Jesus not to send them to the abyss. Now hold that, because the panic behind that request reveals something critical about what the abyss is and who is already in it. If this kind of investigation, questions the standard answers cannot reach, is what you have been looking for, the most useful thing you can do right now is subscribe. This channel was built for people who cannot stop asking. Now, back to what that panic is telling us. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4, God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to Tartarus, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment. Jude chapter 1 verse 6, the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but abandoned their own dwelling, these he has kept in eternal chains under darkness, for the judgment of the great day. Both passages are pointing at the same event. The divine beings who descended in Genesis chapter 6, the ones the ancient texts call the Watchers, they are already bound, already in the abyss. Peter says so. Jude says so. The punishment has already been executed. So here is the question that breaks the demons or fallen angels assumption open. If the demons in Luke chapter 8, Legion, were the same kind of being as the Watchers from Genesis chapter 6, why are they not already in the abyss? Why are they roaming free, inside a man begging not to be sent to a place they should already be in? The only coherent answer is that they are not the same category. The Watchers are bound. Their sentence has been carried out. These are not the Watchers. These are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the children, born into earthly bodies, lost those bodies in the flood, earthbound because they were half earthly, wandering because they have no celestial origin to return to, desperate for embodiment because that is what they were made for and what was taken from them. They beg for the pigs because anything is better than the abyss. Jesus grants the request. The pigs rush into the lake and drown. The demons are disembodied again, wandering again. The world underneath the New Testament is far stranger than most churches describe. And there is one more passage that almost never gets brought into this conversation. It might be the most extraordinary one in the entire series. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 18 through 20, after the resurrection. Jesus went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. The spirits in prison, who disobeyed in the days of Noah, the Watchers, the divine beings from Genesis chapter 6, already bound in Tartarus. And between the crucifixion and the resurrection, Jesus went there and announced something. The Greek word is not the word for offering salvation. It is the word for proclamation, declaration, announcement. What scholars working within the divine council framework, the mainstream scholarly position on this text, suggest Jesus was announcing his victory. The resurrection had just happened. Think about the arc of the whole series, the being in Isaiah chapter 14 who wanted to be Ilion, the one who assigns authority across the entire divine order, the Nakash who overstepped in the garden, the Watchers who abandoned their proper domain and descended in Genesis chapter 6. 3 overreaches, 3 failures, and the one who refused to seize what was not his, who took the servant's position and the cross and the tomb, that one walked into their prison and told them how it ended. But the open question from earlier is still sitting there. Numbers chapter 13, Nephilim in Canaan, centuries after the flood. The flood destroyed the bodies of the Nephilim. Their spirits became the wandering, unclean spirits we see in the New Testament, still earthbound, still desperate. But Genesis chapter 6 verse 4 said, "And also afterward, before the Watchers were fully restrained, the contamination had already spread into human bloodlines. And a bloodline survives a flood if it is carried by a human." The sons of Anak in Numbers chapter 13, Og of Bashan, Deuteronomy, describes his iron bed as over 13 feet long, Goliath of Gath, the Rephaim throughout the territories east and west of the Jordan. The ancient audience reading these accounts understood exactly what the text was implying about their lineage. And this is where the conquest commands, the ones most people find hardest to reconcile, take on a different shape. Why did God instruct Israel to completely drive out certain populations from specific Canaanite cities? The command that feels hardest to square with the God of Genesis chapter 18, who bargained down to 10 righteous people for Sodom. The standard answer is divine judgment on Canaanite sin. That is real, and the text supports it. But the specific territories targeted the lands of the Anakim, the territory of the Rephaim Og's kingdom in Bashan, were exactly where the Nephilim bloodline had concentrated. The command was not indiscriminate. It was targeted at something specific. I want to be honest, this does not resolve every ethical question that conquest raises. It does not. But it gives those commands a theological logic that the judgment framework alone cannot fully explain. Here is what stays with me after going through all of this. 3 rebellions, 1 campaign, 1 target, and every time the same result. The investigation started by asking where evil came from. We found the Bible is more precise about that than most people realize, and far stranger, and it is not over. Next episode follows this war to its most visible moment. Goliath standing in the valley of Elah, what David understood when he walked down into that valley, not just that he was facing a very large man, but what that man represented in the arc of everything we have been tracing, and why what happened in that valley points directly forward to the announcement Jesus made in the prison of the Watchers. If this is something someone in your life needs to hear, send it to them. You do not need to say anything, just send it. That is how this channel reaches the people it was built for. If you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. A new investigation every week. And if you want the full research behind this, the Dead Sea Scrolls material, every word study, the passages there was no room to reach, it is all in the free research document on Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Link is in the description. Follow, and it is yours.